safety's the most important.
What electricity does to our heart as it goes to ground. Mitch has got his high voltage gloves on, and he's going to operate our stick for us. That's a fiberglass shotgun he just put in his hands, and that's worth 100,000 volts per foot. You're hot.
We love Mylar balloons. We'll show you why. They're the worst. Should outlaw Mylar balloons.
The bosses hate Mylar balloons.
You like them. Causes outages for walking.
And it takes us a while to find out where the balloon is to get it off the line. Ready? You're hot.
It's still clear.
So is what he just did with that yellow jumper, he came off the primary 7,200 volts, went down to the neutral, and then he was going from the neutral to that balloon, which was energized at 7,200 volts. Yep, so the whole trailer's grounded at our system neutral, and so when he's touching that, he's taking 7,200 volts straight to our neutral.
To neutral, yeah.
These are the conductors we're using for our overhead lines. This is number 2 ACSR. And then we went to a 4-aught ACSR. And now we're using 477. And this is worth 600 amps. Just as our load just keeps moving up, we keep increasing the size.
Right.
This is a house overhead service that would run into most homes that hit a power pole. That'd be 240. It'd be 120 phase to neutral, 240 against. And this is just a bigger piece. It's a 1-aught quad. So if you would need a transformer bank or a 3-phase transformer, and that'll give you your 3-phase pot with your. These are our underground wires. This is the 1-aught, and it's got the jacketed concentric that runs along with it, with the insulation. And then this is the same as the 477, it's 1100, and we're going more to the 600 amp just because our load keeps coming up. Okay, and this is a new trailer, and it's got a GFI on it and a 20 amp breaker, 120/240. So this is just a 20 amp breaker. Trip it. Now we'll plug it into the GFI. To tell you how this trailer's mounted or wired, so this is a 120/240 transformer. We're feeding it with 7,200 volts from over there. So then it goes out of this transformer into that transformer secondary 120/240. And then it comes out of that transformer and up that pole at 7,200 volts. So this is a step down and that's a step up trend.
To go back to the same volt, to go back to the same voltage. Okay. And then that's just a standard one that goes to house, right?
Yep, that's an overhead transformer behind everybody's house. It's a 120/240 on the secondary side, the high side of it.
7200.
7200 face to ground, and wired exactly like we'd wire one in the vacuum.
Yeah.
Ready, mate? And he's trying to blow that cutout fuse that feeds the transformer, but for some reason we can't get it to blow.
The fuse?
The fuse?
You've been trying to get it to blow, and it won't blow.
Yep.
If it blows, it's going to be loud.
You're hot.
See, that's a 120 bushing on that overhead transformer, and that's the other 120. We've got a little piece of copper wire to go between them.
You blew the fuse.
That should blow that fuse. I don't know what we've wired wrong on the trailer. See if your copper's long enough to go across H1 and H2.
Yeah, why not?
Are you?
Oh. If this blows, it's like a shotgun. Got enough fire going through there. Change out that fuse.
It's the smallest one we got.
And do you wish there was like more like active equipment to like make monitoring the grid easier and like with checking for like faults and like blown fuses, so you can see exactly where the blown fuse is, like it like send a distress signal or something like that?
So we've got that system built into our dispatch system, and they can pinpoint exactly, well, pretty close to where it is. Sometimes they're off, but most of the time that system puts us right
Okay.
there.
All of our meters are AMI meters, so they go right to dispatch on an outage saying these 5 homes are out. This is your most likely place to have a
Yeah.
fault on this fuse.
We have sectionalizers. You have smart sectionalizers. They're putting up switches now that have CTs and PTs on them. So in the downtown area, if there's a fault in an area, that it'll reroute the power without any alignment being there. So there are things to do that. What happens is is it worth the money, right?
Yeah.
Do you put all that money in, and what is the incremental change on reliability? So you kind of have to weigh the cost benefit of those type of things. And the more sophisticated you get in the system, the more I'd say the reliability sometimes decreases, and it's harder to find the issue. And there's safety concerns. These guys have safety concerns. If something starts switching automatically and they don't have control over it, they could get electrocuted. And so there's a lot of different things you have to think about when you install new technology, and safety's the most important for us. This is a 12 kV breaker, so it'd just be like a breaker on your home, other than it can interrupt. It's either a 1200 amp breaker or a 2000 amp breaker. This is probably a 12,000 amps at 12 kV, right? So it's a big breaker. When you go outside, you'll see out in the substation, you'll see 46 kV breakers, kind of the same thing. but they break 46,000 volts, or a 138 kV breaker would be 138,000. In the switchgear, these are all 12,000
How
volts.
often do you run into, or do you have it be tripped?
Well, how often do you have power outages? When the power goes out, what's happening is this, so like out here, he was trying to do a direct short. So if you're out on the line and a tree falls into a power line and it takes the power to ground, right? What happens is we design the system so first the breaker opens, boom, boom. So you'll see the breaker open, it's a big loud boom, boom, and then we'll have we'll have a delay for a second and then it'll close. And then it'll hold in that power for a certain amount of time, waiting for that fuse to blow. So you design it. So the first one we call the fuse saving scheme. We want the breaker to open up and then close down because most faults are temporary in nature. So you want just this breaker to open it up, clear the fault, close it, and everybody's back on power. So sometimes you see your lights go off, go on, go off, go on, go off, and they stay off, or they go off and then they come back on. It's just the breaker operating. So we normally close it 2 times and then the 3rd time we lock it out because it's a permanent fault. What we're hoping to do is that we open the breaker, the fault goes away. We close it, everybody's back on power. If it closes and the fault's still there, what we're hoping is that the fuse will blow. So what you do as an engineer, you look at the fuse coordination, you program the relay to operate with the fuse. You look at these curves and you try to operate it from, you know the current, you know how much fault current is on the system, and you try to operate the fuse right after the first breaker. And then if the fuse blows and then this closes, then most people are on. The only people who are affected are the small amount that are affected by that fuse. So as an engineer, that's kind of what you do when you talk about fuse coordinations. You're coordinating the breaker with the fuse out in the system. And so you have to do fault studies, you have to know what the impedance is of your line, you have to know what the fault current is available out on your system, and then you coordinate those actions. The first time you open up the breaker, you're hoping the tree limb opens up, goes away. Whatever gets in the line that's causing the fault, you hope is cleared on the first one. And I think if you looked at engineering studies, 80% of the faults are temporary in nature. So that's why sometimes you see the lights blink off and on, and then the power just stays on. That's what you're saying. The fuse.
You do that, and you don't have to blow a fuse.
Yes. Sometimes you do a fuse blowing scheme where you would program the relay to hold in the fault longer, blow the fuse on the first one, isolate it, and then open up and close. We just try to do it. The first one we want to eliminate it, temporary, try to get back on, and then blow the fuse. So you hold it in, you say, I want the breaker to hold in on that fault this much time. Line. So if you model where the line is, you can tell where the fault is, right? So if the fault current starts at the substation about 10,000 or 10,000 amps, by the end of the line it might be about 3,000 amps. And then if I know the impedance of the line, I can say, well, that fault, I read the fault current. The fault current was 4,000 amps to ground. I know where the impedance is. I can look and see where the system fault is and predict where it is. Now on residential distribution, it's harder, right? Because you break off in your transformers and there's your circuits, you go different directions. But on a transmission line, I can get within 100 feet of where the fault is just by knowing what the fault current is. Because I know the impedance of that line all the way down the transmission line.
On the line. Yeah, how often do you get underground faults? Is that something that happens very often?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we probably had 3 last week. What are they?
Yeah, what's causing it?
People running into transformers when it's slick, accidents. It's
Okay,
people
so
running
it's not
into it.
usually people on, like, nothing's happened to the underground lines.
No, mostly it's accidents. And mostly it's car accidents running into them. I bet if you looked at her, we probably had 3 people running into transformers. You know, because it's slick out there. People run into them. We had a bollard in front of us, a big transformer, and they just took out the bollard and ran right through the transformer. This would be the wiring for the relay. So you look at all of the relay wiring that comes back. It's all, if you look at the wiring, the one line, you'll see each one of these wires is hooked to a different location. back in the annunciator page, it might go to some gear. Anyway. Any other questions about this? Am I long-winded? Sorry. This is great. So,
I like seeing the actual voltage on the little panel there.
yeah, well, the voltage right here is 12.7 volts to ground. So if they need more power because they missed a load curve, they'll just start one of the engines or two. They can start up remotely, and that's how they run this power plant. This is where you monitor everything in Pro City. So the lineman said, like, we have every home model, and so here's a meter of the home. So if they were there, you could kind of, you can go over the top of it, you can see who lives there. If there's a power outage, the meters will report to us where the outage is. They are communicating all the time with the main office here. So we can turn power on or off for anybody in the city. So this is the downtown area. You see the red one? That's breakers that are closed. If there's a fault, the breakers will open where the fault is, and it'll reroute the power automatically without anybody going out. The top line's 138 kV, the yellow's 12 kV. All those breakers are red, so they're closed. If a fault happens, there'll be a alarm here. Then they'll go to this other system, the OMS system, and show you where it predicts the fault. So, like 3 houses go off, it'll say the transformer is bad. 40 houses go off, it'll say the line fuse is bad. If the breaker stays open, it'll say 2,000 people are off, right? So there's just different areas of outages. Good.
Did you ever play pranks on people and shut the power off randomly?
What's your address? Let's do it.